council. Sorry. And we'll have roll call first.
Tony from Berkeley Hills. Michael Berman, Kanema. Paul Edgar, Kanema.
Here.
Amber Holbeck, The Chamber. Here. Amy Wilhite, Gaffney Lane.
Here.
Kathy Hogan, Hazel Grove.
Here.
Tom O'Brien, Hazel Grove.
Present.
Steve Anderson, Hillendale.
Here.
Debbie Darusha, Hillendale. Terry Powers, Main Street. And Damon Maybe, McLaughlin.
Here.
Alice Watts, McLaughlin.
Here.
Bob LaSalle, Park Place.
Here.
Steve Van Haverbeek, Park Place.
Here.
Bruce Danielson, Rivercrest. Eileen Olson, Rivercrest.
Here.
Ingra Rickenbach, South End.
Here.
David Rickenbach, South End.
Here.
Todd Last, Tower Vista.
Here.
Steve Tame, Tower Vista. John Lewis.
Here.
Is that it, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay. And my name's Tom Guile. I'm the interim chair moderator temporarily until we discuss this a little bit further. We're going to go around the room because there's some other people that are in the room that should be recognized for the minutes. So let's start with Doug.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, we are recording, video recording and audio recording, so if you're going to speak, please speak into the mic, so either up here or I'll pass this wireless mic around, make sure it's working.
My name is Nicole Last.
Ray Gordon McLaughlin. Barbara Rankin, Park Place.
Ray Rankin, Park Place.
Dave Prideaux, Kanema.
Alice Prideaux, Kanema.
Kevin Hutt, interested citizen from South End.
Howard Post, Kanema.
Carol Pauley, City Commission.
Well, don't forget the most important one right there.
Hi.
This is Sophie Last.
And then we also have Vilka Beisman, City Attorney.
Okay. For those who are tuning in to this on cable, the Citizens Involvement Council is a gathering of all the neighborhood representatives where we gather to discuss projects in our community, communicate to each other and to the city of things going on. So it's a good meeting to have for all the neighborhoods to be able to work through their issues. We're here tonight to work together in understanding and following our bylaws. We had a situation recently where we realized that maybe our bylaws weren't always being followed as they should be. And so I'd like to summarize for you at this point what has happened since our last meeting. But sorry, Katie, I jumped ahead. Did you want to go into, we have no guest speakers, we have no minutes?
That's correct. We have no guest speakers at this meeting, and we have no written minutes to approve, so we move on to the new business and discussion items.
Sir, are you look?
You don't have no minutes, but according to your bylaws, you should have written minutes.
We will have written minutes to approve, but not at this meeting.
Okay, but according to your bylaws, you
And-
should have written minutes.
We
No,
don't
minutes
have
are being
secretary
taken.
to do that.
What this was an agenda item, whether to approve minutes that had been taken from previous meetings.
So, back on my notes here that I've got for you. On Monday, December 3rd, we had an election for new CIC officers, and there was questions brought up during and after that meeting. On Wednesday, December 5th, the Secretary-elect, Amy Wilhite, made an inquiry to the City Commission regarding whether or not the election followed our standing bylaws of the organization. Amy pointed out that the chair has the right to call a special meeting or at the request of 7 members, and it was leading that direction. So I came up to the podium to the mayor and the commissioners following Amy, and I stated that that I could call one solely on my own as the chair, but I would rather have it based on 7 members, at least 7 members asking for a meeting to be called. I didn't want to take that on upon myself to call a special meeting. So let me be really clear here that I did not go out and seek people to request a special meeting of the CIC. I just said if 7 people want to request a meeting, I will request a special meeting. We tried to hold one on December 17th, and we're advised that probably the agenda we had would probably not be right, so we postponed it until we talked to the commission on the 19th, Wednesday the 19th. So on Wednesday, December 19th, the City Commission met primarily about the CIC and the issues we were having. The Commission heard from both sides for quite some time, and Mayor Neely suggested some resolutions. And so I watched that tape again and took some notes, and this is just some of the highlights of that meeting. Mayor Neely urged holding off the election for 3 months for us to come back in and vote according to our bylaws. He suggested we hold our current officers in place. Right now, I'm the only current officer left. I'm chair. Our vice chair and secretary have resigned. Betty agreed with what Doug and the other ones were saying. She said to not hold a special meeting on December 20th, which we had planned, but do a vote for the chair in February or March. And she said she didn't want to see the CIC divided on this issue. Mayor Neely said a very pertinent comment. He said that he watched all the videos of our CIC meetings, and throughout that time he said, you all seem to work together really well, and you accomplish what you're supposed to be doing, of communicating, and he saw no politics at that time. And I guess some people think there might be politics, but I think this is just about our bylaws. Amy Wilhite came to the podium and said we need someone to guide us. If you just turn it over to us, it could be a mess. We need someone to guide us. Alice Watts simply said, just do the election right. No one would question the next election if we do it right. Tom would stay with us, and I think it's the right thing to do. Betty said, Tom can always sit in as chair but not vote, which is what I am at this point. At 1:30.34 on the tape, Nancy Ide said she wanted a clarification. So we are all on the same page. Let me clarify. City Commission has vacated the December 3rd election, reinstated former officers, and recommending that another election be held 3 months down the road. And at 1:31.18, the attorney said Commission does not have the authority to tell the CIC what to do, but strongly recommends to the CIC. So in other words, when Nancy asked those clarifications, the city did not vacate the elections necessarily, and they did not reinstate the former officers. It was up for us to decide how to move forward with this. Betty responded 3 months, not 4 months, because she had kind of wavered there. At 1:32.10, Tom came back to confirm exactly what the City Commission and the mayor had wanted. At 1:33:30, the attorney says you have a very strong recommendation from the Commission. If the CIC declines to take those steps, the Commission may come back to consider other steps to deal more harshly with the CIC. And they could strip the CIC of any power to do other things. Again, that was just a may. The word may was used. At 1:35.00, Tom said, I already set a meeting for January 7th, 2013, and I agreed that I would chair the meeting in order to set the process, and commissioners were in agreement. Does anybody else have any other thoughts of how that went? Okay, that was pretty much it. That was the recommendation. That was point 13.014 of the recommendation from the mayor and the commissioners.
Do you want to speak?
I do.
Okay, you can use the mic.
Yeah.
And just state your name again for the record. So that
My name is Nicole Last, and I'm just speaking as a citizen. I do not represent my husband, who represents Tower Vista. He has no control over me. What I want to state is that what I have seen is a ton of emails that have been flurrying back and forth among many of you on this CIC board, and you state that it's just about rules, but that's not what your emails state at all. There's a ton of politics that are going on behind the scenes, and I think you should be ashamed of your behavior. And further, what is disappointing to me is that you were chair during this whole election. This election process should have been handled a month before the actual election, and it should have been handled by the board, should have been prepared and made the election go very smoothly, and there shouldn't have been a problem. And you as chair now are being put back in charge to oversee things, which you fumbled at the beginning. And I apologize, but that's the truth. And so it doesn't make sense for the administration to suggest putting the person who fumbled, was in charge, back into the play again. But the truth of the matter is that things got fumbled up, and then you saying, well, bylaws were screwed up. We're going to fix the bylaws. We're going to let things rest for 3 months. That's fine, but you're still not following the bylaws. So if you're going to fix the bylaws and you're going to insist that the bylaws be followed, then start following them right now, please. And you're not following the bylaws right now. You're not doing the meeting minutes. You continue to send emails back and forth to each other when you were told by Katie a month and a half ago that you should stop having email communication inappropriately. You have failed to CC everybody on your emails and all of the board members on your emails. My husband is a board member. He gets emails third party, and you have been told not to send these type of correspondence. You as a secretary are a board member and were told not to send emails, and you have done so. That's my point. And I'm just saying, if you're going to say that this is a matter of bylaws and following procedures, please check yourself and start doing it. That's what I have to say. Thanks.
I should clarify about that. Amy was not secretary yet, but there were a lot of emails going around. That's true. And I stopped responding to any of them. There was so much going on, and a lot of them took on a personal tone. And I suggested that stop.
Just a day ago.
What did I say a day ago?
Yes, and please show me
I
mine,
haven't sent
because
any emails in a
I
long
didn't send an
time.
email either. Please do not accuse.
Okay.
We focus
But
on,
I do want to clarify here that the role of a secretary, that you say I was in charge, I went to several different processes of state services authorities, Rotary Club, other communication clubs, Nathan Garber and Associates, which trains secretaries, and every one of these, the secretary, at that time, the secretary is responsible to have a copy of the bylaws and to remind all the board members. The president or the chair only conducts the meeting. The vice chair follows in that role if the chair cannot be present, but the secretary, and I'll read you some of these. Additionally, the secretary should be knowledgeable of the organization's records and related materials, providing advice and resources to the board, such as governance issues, and they refer to bylaws there. They're supposed to bring a copy of the bylaws to every meeting. Another one here, role of the board secretary. The board secretary is the chief administrative officer of the public entity. The board secretary should have detailed knowledge of the establishing legislation of the public entity, bylaws. The Rotary, same thing. It also says here, send out reminder cards to those Rotarians who have missed 2 or more meetings, and alert the president and the attendance committee when a member has missed 2 or more meetings. Again, that goes on and on and on here on all of these, that the secretary is the person responsible to implement the bylaws and remind the rest of the board. The secretary ensures that the official records are maintained of members of the organization and the board. The secretary ensures that an up-to-date copy of the bylaws is available at all meetings. So, well, I'd like to take the responsibility. I wasn't actually aware of that. I should have been, like everyone else, but nobody on the board was aware of that, plus anybody here. I think that first evening, the first one had all the bylaws. I'm sorry, William.
no problem.
Bill.
Doesn't matter. Chair, I'd point out a few things. One, a lot of what you suggested when you went through the bylaws were bylaws from other organizations. Is
Right.
that correct? And
Nonprofits and boards.
Right. And they can differ, and
Yeah.
our CIC. And I guess what I would ask the CIC to consider doing is, I'm not certain going back and talking about who did what wrong is going to lead to a productive place, and instead to focus on following the bylaws, moving ahead, and,
Right.
and figuring out how to move forward from this.
Thank you. And I was responding
I
to those
understand.
comments, yeah. So here's the questions that are before us tonight.
Okay, wait. I think we have some other people to
I'm sorry.
speak on this really quick. Do you have something, Alice?
Yes, I did. I was going to actually say before our city attorney did that it was my hope when we came to the meeting tonight that we would forego all of discussion of past mistakes and move forward in a positive manner. And those the kind of comments that I understand what you say, but we don't need to hear that now. We're moving forward. I would like everyone to please be calm and collected and not worry about who said what to who.
Agreed. Okay, Paul?
Thank you. Just as a point, the secretary resigned, and that's, we're going to have to take additional steps to go back through the video to get the minutes taken, put together. But right now, we don't have an entity or an official secretary of the CIC. So we'll make it happen.
I've asked
Jointly.
Amy to stand in tonight to take the minutes.
Okay.
Here's the questions before us. Number one, first we need to decide if you want me to serve as your interim moderator or chair in a non-voting capacity. And then second, there's nothing in the bylaws on how we form a nominating committee, and that's what we were trying to do, is follow our bylaws. Do we take volunteers? Do we take nominations, or what? So I think we need to have a brief discussion on how we actually proceed to follow those bylaws, because it's not really described in there. Third, our bylaws, I don't see how we can give them a thorough review between now and when we conduct the actual elections. I would encourage everyone to thoroughly review the CIC bylaws. I know Steve said he has, and suggest areas of change. And we'll probably have to appoint a committee of you to do that, since I'll be moving on to a different capacity. One area of concern, as she addressed, is the secretary role. And because these meetings need to be appropriately documented, I would like to suggest that Amy helps us in that capacity. And I had some notes here that I did some research on the role of secretary. I wasn't planning on introducing those earlier. I was going to give them to Amy so she's aware of some of the things that a secretary probably should do, and it should be probably added to our bylaws what the different roles of each of the officers are. So I think we should open it up to the very second thing on the agenda, and I've lost it. Here it is. The non-voting moderator chair role, and open this to comments to hear from all of you what you'd like to do. Okay.
Kathy, did you want to speak?
Yes, and Paul Edgar's ahead of me.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think that it was, Tom has offered to do this. I think it's an appropriate for us to, through a consensus type approval of it, to proceed ahead. All we need to do is get going and look forward instead of look back. Let's look forward, and I appreciate it, Tom, that you've stepped forward.
Kathy?
Yes, I agree with Paul, and I would make a motion that we would accept Tom's help until we get a chair.
I second.
Do you want to do the calling on the vote?
Is there any discussion?
Discussion will be the next.
Sorry, thank you. Discussion. Okay. Katie, do you want to just ask for a show of hands? How would you like? Or do you want me to do it like we normally do it?
Well, I was going to say, we normally just
do it as a roll call.
he does it, show of hands.
Okay, all those in
Is
favor of my accepting this temporary role as a non-voting moderator, please raise your hands. Of those who can vote, are responsible.
That's right.
Representatives.
He's just going to be the non-voting moderator.
Until the election can be held.
Who seconded that? Was that Bob?
As Ms. Watts.
Oh, once. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not in the bylaws. This is a special circumstance.
The question of who is chair at the meeting some aspects of it are in the bylaws, some aren't. We've got a chair who has resigned, and to nominate a new person needs 7 days advance notice of the meeting. That wasn't given. So the question of who run the meeting.
How you conduct the meeting.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion that's on the floor, please raise your hand signifying aye.
Aye.
Do you need to? I don't think you need the names as much as just the count.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you dare, Doug.
Okay, and
3 people from Kanema voting.
Then
Move for a roll call.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
Kevin?
As someone who's been a parliamentarian in the past, I would like to point out that you got in this situation partially because you didn't know who had credentials to vote, and you're now proceeding without having made that determination.
exactly.
That's
I
true.
would like to suggest that you discuss that, and that once you determine who has credentials to vote, then you proceed in that.
Good point.
And it's perfectly fine for someone, if there's consensus, it's perfectly fine for someone such as yourself to proceed as a temporary chairman until the assembly elects someone to fill that role, which they've already done. But you might want to have that vote again once you determine who's really able to vote. When the bylaws don't address something, the bylaws say that you go to Robert's Rules, and under Robert's Rules, you're essentially in this is tantamount to as if it were an organizational meeting or an assembly, and that means that you're kind of starting from scratch. And the fact this is already outside the bylaws, so you want to try to follow Robert's Rules as close as you can, and that would entail a temporary chairman, establish who has credentials to vote, and then everything proceed by motion after that.
Then my question for you, Kevin, and for Bill is if we don't have credentials from everybody just yet until they meet with their
Unless
steering
some,
committees.
what you would do is those who you ask those who believe they are qualified to vote to identify themselves, get them, have it done in some way so that every time there's a vote, you know who they are. And if someone wants to challenge someone's credentials, they can do it. But if they don't, then they're qualified to vote.
They challenged the credentials of this last vote, so
But-
why what you challenged the last time?
Well, that's for you to. So for the
Chair
assembly,
Guile, if I
it's
may.
for the
Please.
assembly to decide who's qualified to vote.
Bill? Or attorney?
Generally, I agree with Mr. Hunt, which is what we were doing. We're in the process of determining who is going to lead this discussion. And this assembly, I think, would probably even be the better way to put it. And we had a vote. If somebody wants to challenge the credentials, they can do so. There's no obligation to say now is the time that you challenge the credentials. Somebody would raise a point of order, and that's what they could do. If there are any challenges to credentials, we can do that. But at this point, the motion's been made. We're trying to figure out who is going to chair the meeting as we move forward.
Because there's not,
with
we're
the new
not
election.
electing a chair. We're just who's going to chair the meetings temporarily. Mayor Doug?
But there has been.
One concern was I noticed that there were three people from Kanema voting, and I don't think you want to violate your bylaws to that extent if you only have 2 votes per neighborhood.
So we do have a challenge to the credentials of the Kanema neighborhood. If there are 3 people who are voting from Kanema, probably need to determine who the appropriate people from
It may have
Kanema
been
are.
a
who's the
misunderstanding
representative.
when we called the election, and I said those who are qualified to vote.
Yes.
And you're right, that I didn't see who was voting out there. I left it for, the 3 of you need to decide who the 2 official ones are. And from what I remember, it was Paul and Mike at this
Yeah,
point. Is that-
I didn't.
Okay, you're the chair of your neighborhood, right?
And that's the chair of the Kanema neighborhood, Howard Post, who said that he is not voting.
Okay.
So, this is Todd. I just have a
Hi, Todd.
question. Could you restate the motion? Because I'm not clear on what the status of the last elections are. So are you proposing?
We're going to discuss that after we decide who's
Okay.
moderating the meetings.
Okay, so right now
We're just deciding how to go forward.
Okay. I just wanted some clarification.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
agree, I understand.
And okay, sorry.
Damon?
I move that all votes be roll call votes until such time as an election is held.
Yep.
I should mention that Damon and Alice are the only ones who brought in tonight a piece of paper designating that they are the official representatives. Oh, you have one too? I'm sorry. Oh, they were the only two I know that were given to Katie.
Oh, should I give it to Katie?
Yes, please do so.
But it takes care of the whole how many voted who.
Thank you, Damon.
We've got a roll call, let's use it.
So when she calls your name, state either aye, yes, or no, please.
Okay, and I would also, I'm not trying to point anything out, but Tony now is here from Berkeley Hills, is joining us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome, Tony.
So I'm not sure if Tony heard the motion that's currently on the floor or not. So the motion that's currently on the floor, the way I understand it, is to have Tom Guile run the meeting as the non-voting moderator. So if you would
Until an election is
like,
held.
yeah, until an election is held. So if you would like Tom to continue to in that role or capacity, you would vote yes. If you do not, then you would vote no. I just want to make that clear so we are all on the same page. So I'm going to start the roll call now with Tony from Berkeley Hills.
Yes.
And Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
Yes.
Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Kathy Hogan.
Yes. Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Steve Anderson.
Abstain.
Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingra Rickenbach.
Yes.
David Rickenbach.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Abstain.
And that's it. So
Motion carries.
Darn, I was hoping to get out of here and go back to the football game.
14 yeses and 2 abstentions. So it passes. But,
Okay. Then we'll move forward under that
To credentials.
motive, right. The credentials is something that's going to be coming up that we're going to be, I think, I'm sorry, Katie, was it you or was it Nancy that sent out an email to everyone that, no, I think Kevin had sent something out a long time ago about, after the commission meeting, a form or a document of what neighborhoods could use to show who is a representative by whatever means. Some neighborhoods do it by election, some do it by appointment. There's various methods, and so I believe that Katie will need to have the neighborhood bylaws, the most current ones, in her office, as well as a copy by the next time we have a meeting of who. Is it correct that you keep the neighborhood bylaws in your office, a copy of them?
I'm sorry, there's copies of the
Neighborhood
sorry,
bylaws, so that
okay,
was the
sorry.
most recent ones
There's-
are-
They're all online.
They're all online?
Mhm.
Okay. And I thought there were some that weren't online yet, but I'm not sure.
I believe they all are, and if I do not have the correct one online, then you need to send me your correct neighborhood association bylaws.
Well, I'm sorry to do this, but one of the things that it says in the secretary role, okay, secretary role is to do that. Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment, as a relatively new person to this, I went online and looked at all the association bylaws, and they're pretty much just carbon copies of each other.
Some are a little bit different, but yeah.
They are also in need of updating, because like, for example, in ours, it doesn't say anything about co-chairs. It says, I think, president and vice president, stuff like that. So I think one thing you might want to suggest is that the different neighborhood associations need to review their own bylaws and make sure they're current and correct.
Todd, it's interesting you brought that up, and kind of jumping ahead. We did work last year, a committee for several months on establishing a template for the neighborhoods that updated with a lot of more current information. Things have changed quite a bit over the last few years, and I believe that at last time we heard at the last commission, it's being looked at the work session tomorrow night. and then we hope to have something back where we can give it to the neighborhoods. And you're right, everyone has a little bit different, and that's okay. Neighborhoods can do things differently as long as they kind of follow a pattern of similarity that the city would like to see. And so, good point. What I was making on that point is, under the rules I found about secretaries, is that it's kind of the secretary's role to establish credentials and keep a copy. So if you wouldn't mind, Amy.
Well, since I'm not actually a secretary, or am I?
I guess that one might be, I've asked Amy to step in. Does anyone have, shall we take a vote on whether Amy can be our secretary for the next few months while we go through this process? Yes, Bill.
My understanding is that she was elected November 3rd at the meeting. She hasn't resigned. I'm sorry? December 3rd, sorry. And so that she would be the secretary.
Okay.
You know, the commission, this council has taken no action to vacate that election or do anything
That's
else.
next. I mean, not to vacate it, but that's next on the agenda.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't think she needs any further action, but ultimately this council is a judge of what, you know, who's in what position.
Okay.
I would also note again that, you know, the duties you're asking her to take on aren't described in the CIC's bylaws. There's no reason they can't be added to.
Right.
And
everything Bill says is correct. We've been jumping back and forth here. Let me go to the order I had. After the non-voting moderator chair, the idea was to go to December 3rd election considerations and a plan of action. And that's where we were going to discuss Steve and Amy on that. I'm not sure if everyone here is aware of everything that happened on December 3rd and if we need to really go over that again. There was questions on whether we followed our own bylaws and the validity of some people who voted who should not have voted, that we're not following bylaws. So the city could not tell us to vacate those elections. They left it up to us to kind of decide what do you want to do about it. There were several people who had missed who had missed 5 or more meetings. There were some people who voted who really weren't representative from their neighborhood, and so it was kind of put back to us to decide: do you want to redo that election? Do we honor it as it sits now? And we need input from all of you. So I think we need to. I think, Bill, is that appropriate? I'd like to open this up to a discussion, and if some of you have doubts as how those elections, what those questions were, then those people who presented at the December 19th commission meeting should bring those forward right now, or is that even necessary, Bill, to have those, to go over that?
I'm not certain whether it's necessary or not. That's certainly your.
Well, the question is whether that
council's
election will
prerogative.
stand or not, and that's the question that this body needs to understand. And if somebody wants, I'm not sure how to proceed. This is completely unusual waters. I see Mike's name up, or hand up.
I just want to remind people, if they want to speak, please come up to the mics or use the wireless mic as you're called. But Bill, do you have something? Okay.
What I'm asking here is for all of your guidance, and we need input from each of you.
Just for the record, I want to make sure, at the last election, at the contentious election, it was a unanimous vote for Amy. There was no contending her vote. Everybody in the room voted for her.
If we do vacate one, we'd have to probably vacate them all. I don't know, but whether we even want to vacate them at all is the question here.
I think it may be worth noting also that 2 of the people who have been elected have indicated that they've resigned from any.
Only one.
2. I apologize.
That was the
Steve is here.
previous secretary.
Okay.
Yeah. Next, why don't you come up to the microphone?
I'm just going to say, if the process was invalid and there was an improper process that was followed, the whole thing should be vacated. You can't just part and parcel. I don't believe you can. And I think, as an attorney, I think you know that could be challenged legally. Of course, there's no technical damages because all of you are public servants that
Volunteers.
are giving your time. I personally have served on a public board. So, I mean, the truth is that what you guys should do is hold what everybody voted for in spirit and move forward and start following the board rules. That's what I think you should do, is follow the rules moving forward, and that you should do what you voted for. But you can't just part and parcel person by person. If you didn't follow the proper voting procedure, then the whole thing should be null and void, or else you should accept what happened and move forward.
Let me clarify for a moment the procedures. the one procedure that probably, it's part of the bylaws, but nobody really pointed out because I was elected twice. Once to take Damon's place when Damon stepped aside, and then a second time, and the bylaws weren't followed at those times. It calls for a, excuse me while I get to that page, it calls for a nominating committee will be elected at the general meeting prior to the election. Members of the nominating committee are not barred from becoming nominees for offices themselves, and it goes through that. There's never been a nominating committee, and not having actually read those actual parts of the election, I was not aware of that. I started in October announcing that we will be holding elections in December, and be aware of it, and so we can make sure we had a good turnout. I again mentioned that in November, saying we will have elections in December. Please, everyone, be aware of that. I did at that time ask questions, how would you like to vote? Do you want to do it by ballot, by show of hands, etc.? And we came down to, I think it was suggested we do a show of hands. And then at the December meeting, that's how it came about that some people were actually not authorized to represent their respective organizations or of that. Were you going to say something?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, too, that at the December 3rd election, the members that were elected were Larry Hanlon to chair, Steve Anderson to vice chair, and Amy Wilhite to secretary. Since then, Larry Hanlon has resigned from the CIC. So therefore, the chair position at this point is the only position that is vacant or open or empty. The other two electeds are sitting there, and then I think that I just wanted to clarify a couple of those, so for people who weren't here, and I think Alice has something to say.
Just before Alice, out of respect for these two individuals, I asked them to sit up here with me this evening. I know that it was going to come up whether there's a question about this, but I have asked them to be up here regarding their positions. Yes, Alice.
Well, first of all, the whole thing was a surprise to me because in our neighborhood association, we're happy when we have one candidate for an office. When we had more than one for office, I was kind of flabbergasted here at this meeting. But aside from that, if we're going to follow the bylaws, as everyone seems to care to do, I think we should form a nominating committee, and I don't see why we can't take volunteers from the membership. And in the time between now, excuse me, and our next meeting, they could come up with a slate of candidates, and that would also give all of the neighborhoods an opportunity to identify their delegates and put it on paper and send it to Katie so that when we do take our vote, we know who's eligible to vote. And one more thing about that, when McLaughlin neighborhood came up with their two delegates, I was elected the delegate and Bill Daniels was elected alternate delegate. We weren't clear that it was important that he be here. He was an alternate to me, and he thought if one of us was here, that was good enough. And so then when it came down to the voting, and this was another bone of contention when we held our election, was his attendance record was in question, and then we had a proxy vote as well. And so I think it's really important that we know who our delegates are, how many each neighborhood can have, and if they're really serious about being a participant, make sure they're both here.
Right. Kathy?
I think I almost forgot what I was going to say. Oh, goodness. Well, I think that I'd be willing to volunteer for it. And I think, the question is, if we have a list, should we know whether they're willing to do it?
That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of the
It's going to be part of the
I
requirement.
think we'll be going to that nominating committee in a little bit. We're still discussing.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to know, if that, when we do that, we want to know if the person's willing to do it.
All right. Anonymous user.
Steve Anderson, Hillendale. In order to do what Alice suggests, we're going to have to vacate the entire slate that were nominated.
We can renominate if those people still want to
Yeah.
be on the slate.
Rather than vacate, I think, to the extent there is a contention about the people, either Amy or Steve, and there's want to go back and revisit it, the best course may be for Amy or Steve to resign and let the position become open, because I think it's a little cleaner that way because I'm not certain you can vacate that election. This is something that I had some in a memorandum to the City Commission. Following the bylaws is a very good thing, and it's something this council should try to do. However, except for some very fundamental rules, bylaws breaches happen, whether intentional or unintentional. And the question is, do minor bylaw breaches or major bylaw breaches mean that you can come back and attack decisions that have been made previously? If, in fact, you could come back and rethink challenge every decision that was made because of minor bylaw breaches, just about every decision is subject to coming back. And one of the critical questions for the council is what's major, what isn't when you get into this. I think the better course is not to look at vacating it, but to consider nominations. And if the nominations are for Amy and Steve to go forward, maybe they don't need to step down and they can just continue on in their role. If it's somebody else, we can look at that as well. But I think this path suggested by Alice of putting together a nominating committee, first going out and getting credentials for the neighborhood associations, putting together a nominating committee, coming back with the slate is probably the best way to approach it.
Okay, next on the agenda, you want to put Ray on there?
I got Todd on here.
Okay, Paul's up next.
I'll
Okay,
defer.
let's go to, Amy was up next on this list. Amy, did you have something to say, or is that from a, and then Todd's next. Not last, you're next. Okay, you're next.
I just wanted to, I don't need a mic. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the mic. Just wanted to reiterate what Alice said. I really appreciate that you brought up that point because I just want to it's more of a quote. Appreciate your dedication and your.
Ray, would you identify who you're?
Sorry, Ray Gordon McLaughlin. I really like seeing people that are really motivated and dedicated. So I just want to say that this is a great opportunity when you do a steering committee to revitalize people's interest in the CIC. And I just want you to know that some neighbors don't know there's a CIC. They don't know that they can have this ability. So if we, instead of seeing this as a hindrance of doing that steering committee and stuff, see it as this great marketing opportunity for the CIC. So sorry, it's not a question. It's just a thought.
Okay, Todd.
Thanks so much.
Todd and then Doug.
Sure. Hi, I just wanted to say, I think it's really unfortunate that we've had 2 resignations, and kind of the elephant in the room is, as far as we're talking about re-elections, is one of the main candidates is now out of the picture. So it's it's kind of, I guess in some ways I see that's kind of a moot point about what's going to happen next. But I think I agree that the first thing that we should do is make sure that we have our rules on who can vote and get that squared away. The second thing, I'm hearing 2 different things. One is, do you invalidate the December election and start over from scratch? Or the other approach would be, I think, to say we have 1 resignation on chair, we have 2 people that were elected, let's keep them in place and just have another re-election for the chair. So that's just my comment on it.
Doug, Mayor.
Just one comment. I think you seem to be straying a little bit from the agenda in terms of the actions you're taking, but since it's already been brought up in terms of having the nominating committee, I don't know when you want to do that, but the point is you may not be able to get the designated delegates from the neighborhood association in time because several of these neighborhood associations are going to have their meetings. And when I made the 3-month recommendation, I was really talking about 3 months to assure those neighborhood association meetings occurred. I would hope you wouldn't rush to a meeting in March to make the decision. I would prefer, that's my personal preference, but I'd prefer to be at April so that all the neighborhood associations have the opportunity to actually choose their delegates.
Thank you, Doug. Next I see Steve Van Herbebeck.
We either vacate the election, which would require one of the current officers to resign, or we accept the election, and since we've lost our chair, the vice chair automatically, by our bylaws, becomes chair. I see no problem at all with proceeding under that. And Steve Anderson would be our chair, and we just go on. If we're going to, one of them will have to step down now in order to vacate the election.
Alice?
To Mayor Neely's point about the voting delegates, I would assume that those people having attended all these meetings over the last year are in fact the legitimate delegates. We just need something in writing, and I don't see why that can't be forthcoming from the chairs of the other neighborhood committees within a short period of time.
Kathy Hogan.
And actually, Hazelwood Wrestling Farm is having their meeting this month. I wonder which neighborhoods wouldn't be having a meeting that they couldn't proceed then the following month. Because most everybody does have one in January.
Tower Vista doesn't have anyone slated for January, February.
Rivercrest does not have one in January.
Okay.
The chair.
Does, I'm trying to quickly go through the bylaws. I remember that it is, what Steve had said isn't necessarily so, because I remember when Damon resigned to move on to something else, I had to be elected into that position. So you don't just step from vice chair into our secretary to vice chair, or vice chair to...
Reading the wrong bylaws. No.
Okay, sorry.
No, I do think...
So I guess I'm still waiting for someone with some wisdom to say how we're going to move forward with this. I have not heard either of the two elected individuals, vice chair-elect or our secretary-elect, say they're willing to step down so we can do this. So we need to have some input here.
I think Bill has something.
Bill?
Yeah.
Oh, Bill or Mike?
Well,
Bill, sorry.
I was going to say,
let Bill...
certainly, what we have is one resignation. The other two elected officials are still serving. You can go out and get the credentials, whether through the meetings or some other mechanism where maybe the executive council of the neighborhood association meets and certifies that this is who represents them. Each individual neighborhood association will have to figure out how they go about doing that, and whether it's through a meeting or some other means, they can do that. Once you have the credentials, you can come back, form a nominating committee. Nominating committee can go out and nominate for whatever vacant offices there may be, and come back to the CIC at the March meeting with a slate or individual officers, and proceed in that way.
Okay. I'll probably come back to you in a minute.
Sure.
Mike, I think you were next, and then Dan.
Well, primarily I wanted to say that that the bylaws are not what you said about Steve's comments, that's not true, and I just wanted to affirm that. Yeah. Also, we have a whole neighborhood area that isn't represented by anybody, and that's still a concern for the people that are friends of mine that live in Sportcraft Marina off of Forsyth Road. It's a very large geographical area. It's a small population, but they deserve to be represented as well. They've never had representation, and I brought this up almost a year ago, and as I gained some traction with it, my term was apparently up in my Main Street area that I was trying to incorporate as the CIC. We've got two things going on that Nancy Walters wrote a nice letter, very brilliant letter about. We've got a conflicting. We have a neighborhood association, and then we have a CIC that's not the same as our CIC. It's a citizen involvement committee, not a council, that represents the area that's bordered by the Willamette River, the Clackamas, and then Forsyth Road, I believe, coming back down. And for the last year and a half of my representing Main Street, what I found out was that I wasn't really representing what I thought I should have been representing. And those people don't have any representation or any voting, and if they're included in the next year, which they wish they were, then something needs to be addressed with that as well. And I think that's where the 3 months that Mayor Neely suggested would give us time to incorporate something along those lines. It's been brought up a couple times by various people, but it needs to be brought up in public and on TV so that those people out there that may be watching may have a chance to become a neighborhood and not part of this CIC thing, which is a different whole structure than our neighborhood association.
Okay.
That was the main thing.
Thank you. Would you hand the microphone? Dave, would you?
Dave Prideaux, Kenema. I've heard some pretty good suggestions, and it seems like you folks are kind of thinking in a direction that makes some sense. And according to Robert's Rules of Order, if you want to focus the discussion, it's my sense that you're probably ready to make a motion, and if one of the regular credentialed people would make some kind of a motion, that would help you decide, are you sort of in favor of this? Or,
If I could make one quick point, I think Mike Berman makes a very good point, but I think it might be something to take up after we resolve this more fundamental issue.
It's interesting you say that, Bill, because that did come up at the December meeting, that we had a discussion about that, and I said that's something for the new group of administration to handle. Just before you speak, I think we had...
Amber and Damon.
We had...
Let's defer to Damon.
Damon.
Well, I'd like to make two motions.
I think
I know,
we're going
but I'm going to make it one at a time.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know there's going to be two. I know how to do this. You taught me well. My first motion is that until a formal election occurs in 2013, that Steve Anderson and Amy Wilhite continue in their roles as vice chair and secretary.
Can I second that?
Yeah, it's a motion.
I second that.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded.
Now you have discussion and...
Right. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in... Sorry. What did I do wrong?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Yeah.
I'm used to doing things the way we've done
I
them
know,
for years.
sorry. Okay, so Tony, Berkeley Hills.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amy Holbeck.
Aye.
Amy Wilhite.
Abstain.
Or did I say? Kathy Hogan.
Aye. Yes. However.
Tom O'Brien.
Aye.
He said aye. That's okay.
Steve Anderson.
Abstain.
Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Aye.
Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Aye.
Eileen Olson.
Aye.
Ingra Rickenbach.
Aye.
David Rickenbach.
Aye.
Todd Last.
Aye.
It passes.
Point of order.
Yes.
Is the chamber a voting member?
At this point, they are, the bylaws.
No, we don't, I thought we had chamber members, maybe it isn't something.
Well, William came up that during the commission meeting and said that the chamber had resigned,
Yeah.
but Amber's
But
here.
Amber is a new
Yeah.
representative.
He had said that you've already lost one business entity.
Yeah, she voted. Sorry, I said Amy. Sorry, I said Amy. That's my bad. Yeah, Amber. I'm sorry. I mixed them up. I think there's...
There's a...
Okay.
We're in the middle of doing...
They can interrupt
They can
because I haven't made the
interrupt.
second
Go ahead.
motion yet, so I'll yield the floor.
This is just a comment, and that would be, I would recommend that the board members and the potential new board members get a copy of Robert's Rules, because your bylaws are pretty outdated, and so a lot of things are not clarified in them, and they do defer to Robert's Rules if there's something that's not clear in them, and it's very helpful.
I agree. That's one of the things that's on the agenda for the next one, because there's two different, we've learned in the last city commission, there's two variations of the Roberts Rules of Orders, and we need to determine which one that the CIC is going to follow, if it's the same as the city follows. I never knew that before that evening.
And there's actually multiple versions. It's
Oh,
not
no!
just two.
According to Hoyle? Okay, is there another comment before we move back to Damon? Damon?
I move that the CIC proceed with the nominating committee and move for a general election of all positions in the April meeting.
Can I ask a clarification on that? Is that okay? Bill, didn't you say that we needed to have those credentials first before we could form a nominating committee?
You don't have to have them. This was something that was brought up, and it's certainly something you can request, but we've got to...
I second that motion.
Okay, just wanted to...
And I figure by April there should be in
Okay, hold on just a second. I'm just getting it down.
Speak slower.
No. I'm just slow. Okay, so we're ready for the vote, or discussion, sorry.
Discussion? Okay.
Tom?
I'm sorry, Tom?
Yes, if I understood Attorney Cablesman, he said earlier that we could not vacate the election as it took place. And I realized Damon placed his order of his two motions in a sequence that would perhaps alleviate that. But I think Bill was very smart in saying to us that if we're going to be vacating things, how serious or how slight does the situation have to be for something of that severity to take place? He offered a solution that if those people who were elected at the December 3rd meeting wished to resign, they were welcome to do so. But I don't see anything in this motion that's before us now that incorporates that into the motion, and that is a concern to me.
I'm not sure, Tom, are you meaning that does not recognize the fact that they are being recognized?
The first motion, which passed, said that Steve and Amy would remain in place until April.
No, the first motion said they would stay in place until there was an election in 2013.
Until there was an election. That is really something that, even though we approved it, I'm not sure that from a legal perspective it would stand up in a court of law.
And it's, I think Damon had a good point, which is another election in 2013. It could be in April, it could be in December.
No.
No, but I do think filling the chair's position is pretty clear. I think Tom's point that vacating an election is a pretty significant step, and I believe Amy and Steve were elected to their position. There may be some ways to get there but that if you want to fill all three positions, you've got to come up with a way to force Amy, the current secretary and vice chair, out. And I'm not certain you've gotten to that point. What I might suggest as a friendly amendment, if you're willing, would be to have the meeting in April to fill all vacant positions.
Well, I guess we haven't had a second, so I don't know if we can actually have a discussion.
We did, yeah, we did.
Okay. First off, I don't necessarily see this as forcing them out. If anything, it should come out as an affirmation of them. If they get reelected, it's an affirmation of the position.
Sure.
So it isn't, some sort of nefarious scheme to eliminate them. But the election was called into question. So them being reelected, which I'm new, so I'm assuming that you're going to be reelected, and filling the vacancy for the chair resolves all those issues, takes any sort of cloud off of their positions, and I would assume reaffirms them in their position. I understand that the bylaws specifically say special elections only account for vacancies. But as we started this meeting with, this is an assembly, and therefore more like the starting of a new committee. I'm assuming that if we have enough votes for it, that we can hold a general election, which would reaffirm things, give us practice with the nominating committee, and also set us up for the next general election, which is in November, not December, according to our bylaws.
Every 2 years. Therefore, so
it says
not
annually in November.
No, the bylaws are, sorry, but that's how I ended up doing it for 3 years. It's
Article 8, Section 4.
Article 8, Section 4. Regular elections of officers will be held at the annual general meeting. Special elections may be held at the general meeting for the purpose of filling vacant positions. However, it goes into, where is it? Somebody help me with this.
5-2.
Article 5.2. Let's see. Officers will be elected at the annual general meeting for terms of 1 2-year term and will perform the following duties. And that's why you stepped down in the middle of yours after the first year, and I stepped in after got voting in, and then I served another 2 years. So it's a 2-year term. So those seem to be in conflict, don't they?
Well, especially since the meeting is supposed to be the second Tuesday of November instead of the first Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Who wrote these rules?
The ones I wrote didn't have this problem. You're the one who rewrote them in your term. Anyway.
No, didn't rewrite them.
Oh.
Just added one.
Anyway,
to do with your grievances.
but irrespective of that, it just seems to me that it's a reaffirmation. We fill the vacancy, we reaffirm the 2 positions, and we get the cloud out of here and we move on. That's my motion.
We've got Kevin back there. I do have one question, though. What if the nominating committee wanted to nominate Steve for chair? Kevin had a point.
Well, I was going to get to that. The nominating committee could always nominate those 2 people. But if Mr. Maben, one suggestion I might have, sir, is that you might add to your motion that, or when you get to establishing a nominating committee, you could do this, but that Ms. Willite and Mr. Anderson automatically appear on the ballot. And if nobody else is nominated, either by the nominating committee or from the floor, they're going to be the only ones that are going to be voted on. If other people are nominated, then you'll have a contested election. But that would seem to be a fair way of dealing with it.
I see Ray Gordon back there. And
Just going on that word, reaffirm and stuff. By doing this, we reaffirm that we're listing and that everybody matters and their points are taken. So that's what we got to remember.
Okay. I see Tony's hand over there. Sorry, Tony. Thank God John's here to help us. Thank you very much.
Hi, guys. So I'm very new to the whole board, and from what I'm understanding here is that based on our last meeting, we're having some issues with following ballots, yes or no. And from what William said, that if we're to follow the ballots to a T, then there's some other issues might come up. But the thing is, whether we followed the ballots or not, we were all here, those who were present, appointed the 3 of them. And the ballot issue came up, one vacated the position, and if we're to do a re-election of some sorts, from my understanding that one of these 2 remaining should vacate. So until that, there is no point in talking about redoing the meeting. From what I'm thinking, what we'll have to redo, the election that needs to be redone is for the vacant chair position, which is for the president or something like that. So until either of them resign, which should be the biggest question here, is which of them wants to resign, so that we can say, let's redo the whole thing. Otherwise, they're both staying put in their positions, and then come April, we'll just redo the election for the vacant chair. Okay. I think that's my own point of it. It makes it very easy and simple that way. If we have to follow the bylaws, we'll follow the whole bylaws.
Okay, I see Paul's up, and then
the reason why I support what Damon is asking for is really about when we started this meeting tonight. It was about clearing the air and starting anew and starting fresh. And this is to create a nominating committee, go through the process, and then we remove any questions whatsoever about the election and who is elected. And I would to me, I'd like to see it happen in that way, in a sequence, so that we move on and there's not any question on anything, on anybody.
Okay. 1 second. Steve and then Ms. Last.
So, per Damon's motion, the last motion, where we said that Steve and Amy were serving as vice chair and secretary. Is Steve the vice chair at this time?
No one seems to have challenged it.
Back to our bylaws, Article 5, Section 2B, vice chair performs the duties of the chair in his or her absence. I think a resignation is an absence. Therefore, Steve is to serve as the chair of all our meetings. I don't...
It doesn't say vacating or resignation. It just says in his or her absence, which is if someone's not making it to a meeting.
Are they here?
We may need a clarification.
No, I believe Steve, if the chair isn't here for whatever reason, however, this council did decide to have, earlier tonight, have Tom serve in the role of moderator.
Before we had a motion to accept Steve as the vice chair.
And you can certainly do that. There's, it's up to this board
we've
to
done it
decide
that
whether they
far.
want to continue to have Tom serve as moderator or have Steve step in his role as vice chair.
Ms. Last.
I was just going to say, Steve, you're correct. From my experience on a past board, what I was going to say is that you had 6 or 7 people contest your voting process. And now those people that are contesting the process are not wanting to vacate the process that's now being affirmed. So I'm confused by that. I'm understanding, Amy, were you one of the people that contested the voting process?
I don't believe it. Yes, I was one of the.
Okay, so could you step down then because you contested the process and you felt that it was an invalid process, so I'm wondering why you would not step down and let everything be redone.
It wasn't the process.
I'd ask you to address the chair, and the chair can...
It wasn't the process. It was some irregular votes that should not have probably been placed that were brought into question before the city commission. The process, yes, but it was mainly some invalid voting that had been taken.
But I saw a string of emails. The whole process was contested. I saw a series of emails that were sent out by the secretary that had just been voted in. And she stated that she was concerned that there was illegal activity, and she contested the entire process and felt that there was incorrect. So if that person on the board felt that there was a problem, how come they wouldn't be willing to step down? I'm just asking.
I guess now, before you answer, I guess, Bill, you're saying that those should be addressed to the chair?
The way the meeting should work, all remarks should be addressed to the chair. The chair can either respond or move on to other comments or ask somebody else to respond.
I would imagine I'd probably need to see those emails again if I was on it, but I don't think anything was said illegal, but probably...
I do think you have other people looking to comment.
Amber, Alice is next, then Amber, I'm sorry.
Alice?
Two things. I know we've already approved the original motion that Damon made, but in clarification, if it's an issue that we do need a secretary to take our minutes, and we may need a vice president to do some other duties as well, they could still be called pro tem at this point. They don't have to be elected. And Mr. Hunt's suggestion to put them on the ballot again if the nominating committee asks them and they say, yes, I still want to run, there's no reason we can't elect them again, assuming that they are the favorite. But my other comment was in Damon's current motion that we're actually discussing, I was concerned about the suggestion to elect in April. I think that's too long to drag this out. I would like to not drag it out any longer than March. If we could get those credentials from the neighborhoods, I'd like to have the nominating committee get to work, be assigned, get to work, bring those nominees to the February meeting, and we have a vote in March.
Finally, Amber, you've been so quiet.
Thank you. I guess a couple things that I would like to just mention is I appreciate what Alice said in that she had reminded us all that we need to be discussing the motion, and that's a piece that we tend to drift away from at times. The other piece is with regard to Damon's motion, the one that's on the floor. I think that's going to strike at the heart of the integrity of the process. And that's the piece that every time we come up to, I don't care what level of election it is, within business groups talking about what we want for Clackamas County, integrity keeps coming to the very top every single time. And if we don't bear through on the nominating committee process that goes back with a clean slate, it may yet be Steve and Amy that come to the top in those elected positions. But I think that we need to go back to the integrity of the process and do it by the books.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
Call question.
We got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, question's been called.
Question's been called.
Okay, I guess we go to the vote.
Can we have the motion read, please?
Did you want to change it according to what Alice said, or would you please state it again?
Oh, sure.
I'll if you don't mind, and then we can make sure I got it correct too. So the motion was made by Damon Mabey to, he moves that the CIC proceed with a nominating committee and hold the general election of all positions at the April meeting. That was seconded by Paul Edgar. Did I get that correct?
You did.
Okay.
In 2013.
April 2013,
okay.
yeah. It was implied, but get the words in there.
So do I?
Let's call for the vote.
Do a vote.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the roll call again. So Tony, Berkeley Hills.
On this motion that's on the floor to have a nominating committee?
Yeah, he said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying.
It's okay.
Yes, what?
Paul, or I mean, I'm sorry, Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
Aye.
Amy Wilhite.
Abstain.
Kathy Hogan.
Aye.
Tom O'Brien.
Aye.
Going through puberty there, Tom?
Steve Anderson.
Abstain.
And Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
No.
She wants it faster.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingra Rickenbach.
No.
David Rickenbach.
No.
Todd Last.
No.
Okay, there was 10 yeses, 4 noes, and 2 abstentions.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Yeah. Motion carries, that's right. Okay. So in other words, we gather from that we need to have a nominating committee. And the bylaws don't actually state how that nominating committee is to be formed. Let's
Sure,
look at
Kyle.
the bylaws.
Luckily, this is one that is relatively straightforward because without anything in the bylaws, it reverts to Robert's rules, and basically nominations come from the floor, the way in which a nominating committee should be formed.
So people should be nominated by the representatives here.
Nominate different people until you get to 5.
And does it say 5 on there? Let me see.
I believe it's 5.
It just says a nominating committee.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. You're right. I'm not certain where I got 5
Maybe it's
from.
the whole group. Okay, I guess we open the floor for the nominating committee nominations. Yes, Kevin.
It would be appropriate for someone to make a
Can you use the mic? I'm sorry. Can you use the mic?
There, I'll get it. John, did you
Sorry.
sit down again?
It would be appropriate for someone to make a motion to establish the size of the nominating committee and how it will be selected. So, for example, someone could say, I move that a nominating committee of 5 persons be established and that it be elected from nominations from the floor.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. What will we do without attorneys here?
I so move.
Unfortunately, he isn't in position to make a motion.
Oh, yes, well, I just did. I'm echoing what Mr. Hunt said. 5 people nominated from the floor
For the nominating committee.
for the nominating committee.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Who said that?
Todd last.
Okay, Todd. Okay. Discussion?
Oh, no, we didn't cover that.
Any discussion?
Amber,
Discussion,
maybe-
Amber, bring that up.
I'd just like to offer a friendly amendment, possibly, that we clarify credentialed individuals to the CIC.
On the nominating committee or to be
On,
nominated?
on the nominating committee.
So,
I would amend my motion to specify that the nominating committee be made up of 5 people who have credentials to vote in this election.
can we assume
have
for the,
5 people.
can we assume for the?
Well, we've got one, do you accept the friendly amendment as well? Since you- And the seconder is.
What I was going to say, can we assume for
nomination.
this that everyone here that we know has been here for a while is credentialed until they're able to bring them in? Is that
I'd
appropriate?
ask her what the intent was.
Is
That would be my intent.
Okay, all
If
right.
they're on the list that Katie reads off, I'm assuming they're credentialed, and we'd like to get those credentials as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Discussion. John, what do you have to say? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, then hearing no discussion, let's move. I hope you have a lot of roll call sheets tonight, Katie.
Okay, I'm going to start this again. So, Tony from Berkeley Hills. Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
Yes.
Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Aye.
Steve Anderson.
Aye.
Damon Maybe.
No.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingra Rickenbach.
Well, they're in the restroom.
Restroom.
We can either wait for them to return or proceed further.
Go knock on the door.
Okay, if you guys are okay, I'm going to skip the 2 of them for right now and come back to them. So the next one would be Todd last.
Aye.
And that was the last one in my list. Sorry.
Would there be enough?
Do a dance or something.
Would there be
The
enough to
motion
make the?
carries.
Yeah, it does. It's,
Okay, all right,
There's only one no.
okay. Right, then that brings us down to, we have a nominating committee of 5 individuals. I'm sorry, Paul?
Mr. Chair,
Just
I
call me
would like to
moderators.
ask you a friendly question, if I could, of Damon. He voted no. If there's any particular reason that we should...
I think 5's too many, but it isn't worth fighting about. And
Okay.
we've been here for an hour and a half.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's all, fine.
This is one of our shorter meetings.
I know.
Okay. With that, let's open the floor to nominations for the nominating committee. Let's do this in the proper order. Okay, I think Kathy was up first. Are you writing these down, Katie, or do you want me to?
Trying to, yes.
Okay.
I nominate Paul Edgar.
And these are going to need to be voted on. Okay? Take your sign down, Kathy, now.
sorry.
Alice Watts?
I nominate Damon Maybe.
What? Sure.
That's only two. We need some more. Steve?
I nominate Kathy Hogan.
What happens when you put your sign in?
Two more, please. Nominations. Does somebody wish to volunteer? Can they volunteer and then somebody nominate them?
I nominate Amy.
For the nominating committee?
Okay.
Okay.
I nominate Amber Holbeck.
You should have had your head up.
I nominate Steve Anderson.
That's 6.
And then we vote on that, so, Amber, do you?
So there's, that makes 5.
No,
That's 6 at this point.
Oh, I can set that. That's fine. Is that okay?
You can decline the nomination.
You can decline. Okay. So are there any others? At this point, we have 5 names in the nominating committee, that being Paul Edgar, Damon Maybe, Kathy Hogan, Amy Wilhite, and Steve Anderson. And Amber has withdrawn her name.
Just because it's a voting issue and,
What's that?
Hi. I just wondered if they could be brought up to speed just because there's some voting and they may want to be included. Just David.
Oh, the
Okay.
because they were.
We did just, while you were out of the room, we did just approve to have a nominating committee
Of 5 people.
Of 5.
of
Of
5
5.
individuals.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move the nominations be closed.
Thank you, Steve.
I second.
Okay. The question is, should we, since there are only 5, do we vote for them as a package?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
We can do that? Okay. Any discussion?
Let's vote.
Okay. Voting?
Tony from Berkeley Hills. Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck. Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Steve Anderson.
Aye.
Damon Maybe.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingra Rickenbach.
Yes.
David Rickenbach.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Aye.
Passes
Okay.
unanimously.
If I can interject something here, I think Alice at the commission meeting made a really good point. And Alice, you were talking about what the nominating committee should be doing. Do you want to repeat kind of what you said? You remember it was kind of like bringing forth a resume, letting people know.
Oh, yeah.
Tell people what you were
Well, and it could easily work since we're not voting until April. So anyway, the nominating committee, when they do bring the slate of candidates forward, if we have more than one candidate per office, it would be nice, and in fact, this would be good anyway, but it might be a little simpler when there's only one candidate. Some of our members may not know the candidates well, and it would be nice if they would prepare something about what they believe the job is, what they intend to do, and any suggestions they have for the CIC that might be helpful in their role as whatever they're running
And
for.
you're saying offering that to the nominating committee so the nominating committee has something to give to the...
Yes, but I think it should also be shared with the membership when it's time to vote.
Right, right.
Absolutely.
Kind of like a candidates forum.
That's what I was getting to. Okay. Yes, sir. Who was that? Oh, Kevin.
Please accept my apologies for interrupting again, but since you're trying to make everything just as nice and neat as you can. I think the motion that you actually just passed was to close the nominations. You should take a vote now to approve the nominating committee that you've nominated. Oh, did you do that? I think you.
Good catch.
Yeah.
We close the nominations. Now we're going to vote on whether we like you all or not.
I thought we did that.
No,
Yeah.
I voted to close the nomination.
Oh,
You vote to do that?
oh, that's,
We're going strictly by the book nowadays.
oh, boy.
No more casualness.
Thank you for somebody catching that.
Kevin, you're
So I just want to make sure. So we're voting now on the nominating committee of Paul Edgar, Damon Mabey, Kathy Hogan, Amy Wilhite, Amber not Amber Holbeck, but Steve Anderson. Is that correct? That's what we're voting on now?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just in case, I'll make it. Paul second it.
Thank you. Okay. Tony.
Yes.
Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
Yes.
Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Steve Anderson.
Yes.
Damon Mabey.
Aye.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Aye.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Aye.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingrid Rickenbach.
Yes.
David Rickenbach.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
So I guess the question then is, the nominating committee goes forward from this, and when will they report back to the CIC with, I think that comes back in February. Please, Damon, help.
I make a motion that we discuss the nominating committee and their roles and responsibilities in the February meeting, since there's time before the April election. And we move on with the rest of the business on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second of his? Do we really need a roll call for that, or can we just raise our hands? Or
You
do
can
we need to
suspend the earlier rule.
just to vote by hand?
Probably.
Let's just do a quick roll. Let's just do a quick roll call. So,
Most of the meeting times.
Damon Mabey motioned to discuss the roles and responsibilities for the nominating committee at the February meeting. Todd Last seconded that. So, Tony. Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
Yes.
Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Kathy Hogan.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Steve Anderson.
Yes.
And Damon Mabey.
Yes.
Alice Watts.
Yes.
Bob LaSalle.
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Yes.
Eileen Olson.
Yes.
Ingrid Rickenbach.
Yes.
David Rickenbach.
Yes.
Todd Last.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Boy,
Okay.
you're getting fast.
Okay, I think that ends the discussions on the past elections and what we're going to do moving forward. But under new business, oops, somebody else is up. Oh, Amy, I'm sorry.
I just want to, I'm confused at where we stand on, are we going to also at that next meeting address the voting? So that we don't vote and have the same problem we had happen all over again? It's been talked about we needed to have credentials, but is there something official that
As secretary,
we're all
that's part
agreeing
of your
on or
role to put
something?
things on the agenda.
No, actually, it's your job as the chair to assemble the agenda, so.
I can assemble the agenda, but also I take input from the other ones, from the other officers.
Mr. Chair?
Paul?
I think that there's two issues out there. I think that everybody from the neighborhood associations are pretty well credentialed, and we can identify who they are. But is the chamber position a voting position?
Yes.
And is the, how do we arrive at who represents, we'll say, the Main Street area that is not a neighborhood area?
Right now, the bylaws of the CIC don't address that area. It gives membership to the 11 neighborhood associations, Main Street, and the Chamber of Commerce. You can amend the bylaws. You can ask the city commission to create a new neighborhood association. There are a variety of ways you can do it.
But we've never identified Main Street area, a determination as to what is the Main Street area.
Let's put that on the agenda
And
for
that's,
next
that's part of one of the, the issues is let's get that clarified too as part of the credentials.
Okay.
So I see that next month you have the nominating committee, their role, and then also discussion of the bylaws as it pertains to elections. And that could be on the agenda for next month, correct? Okay. Sorry, Doug.
John?
I mean, it's fine to have it on the agenda. The point is, I don't think you can come up with a defined Main Street area with a representation before you have the elections. I mean, that's going to be a process. It's going to, so, I mean, either you accept what you had informally accepted before, or you declare it a non-voting position because you haven't defined what the representation area should be. The chamber's clear, it's a given organization. Apparently you did not identify Main Street Incorporated as the organization to represent Main Street. I don't think you could possibly clarify that before you have a vote in April.
Doug, it's interesting, that came up in the December meeting, and I suggested that would be something that would take a little longer to look into and get our hands around. I said that would be for the new administration in the coming year to do. So if we don't get it done by the next election, that's something that they have to work on when they start looking at the bylaws and defining these. We can't do it tonight. So.
Well, I would like to make a motion that it's be declared as a non-voting position until we have it credentialed as to who is responsible for appointing it.
If I might make sure I understand that what you'd say is that at this point, since there isn't an entity that can actually credential that person, that can say where it is, it's unlikely you're going to accept the credential of the Main Street area representative.
Yeah, that's correct. And
That would be cleaner than, otherwise we're amending the bylaws.
Well, I don't want, the bylaws say Main Street area. No.
Right, but if we're saying that we want to clarify that, we need to give 30 days writing to amend the bylaws. So it would be better to go with the recommendation of just saying that we can't credentialize that.
To assert that this Main Street representative cannot vote would be taken a privilege from a member. But to say that we can't determine if this is an appropriately authorized person, that doesn't violate the bylaws. What it does is
I accept that as a suggestion.
Was there a second to that? Are we discussing?
Let's hear the motion restated with the advice of
I don't think there was a motion, but there hasn't been a second. So, I'm sorry, there was.
But can he restate that so it's clear?
Let's.
What I would suggest is that it's something that you don't need a motion on. If you're going to try to pull something, you can. But at the next meeting, if a Main Street representative appears to, you can discuss their credentials at that point. But to tell in advance that we're not going to accept this person. Well, no, there's no motion pending.
Well, I'm somewhere along the line we have to come up with how we credential that area. I guess that's the issue.
And I think that is a point that Mayor Neely indicated, that it's a bigger deal than can probably be resolved.
Seem to be modified. They're conflicting anyway.
Absolutely. There is a Main Street area, and it's clearly defined on a map. And on the most recent, anybody can go to Oregon City Mapping Portal, and what you'll see is a small area. If you click on the right spot, it'll click, and you'll see the delineation. You will see the historic part of Main Street. It's a very small area. And then you'll see the main MSO, you'll see the EI, Economic Improvement District. It's a little bit larger. And then you'll see Main Street area, which is, again, a little bit larger. But when you click on neighborhood associations, that doesn't show up. What shows up is the CIC area, and I've been saying this for a year. Main Street doesn't show up on the neighborhood maps. It's represented. And perhaps I'm wrong, and it's an oversight, and I haven't seen it. But every time I've looked at it, I see clearly defined areas. There is a clearly defined area called Main Street. I believe it was the initial EID area that was voted down, and so they made it smaller and was able to pass an EID and created this smaller abridged version of an EID. And that's where there's been a confusion. If you look back in the minutes, you'll see a representative in the minutes that was from MSOC at the meeting. clearly it was not in the neighborhood area because it's not on the neighborhood map. And then another time it showed up as just Main Street area in quotations. So it's been a little bit nebulous from the beginning, and it's been one thing and then another, but clearly it has never been a CIC area representative. Something happened along the way that changed. And so it's a very important question. And obviously it won't get resolved tonight or in a couple of weeks.
A long time ago, that was considered part of the Park Place neighborhood area
Okay.
until they took it off and made a CIC area.
And so we have a conflicting thing again that the CIC is different than a neighborhood association. Right. Typically in urban areas or in a municipality, a neighborhood association are neighborhoods. The chamber might represent or a group like Main Street might represent, but being not a neighborhood, typically they wouldn't, because you could have I could live in Park Place and vote, and I could have a business on Main Street, but you can't be both. And that's definitely got to be, neighborhood associations should be neighborhoods, people that live and breathe and spend most of their time in that area.
Okay. We're going to jump to Bill Kabisman here.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't disagree with anything that Michael said, but what I do want to point out is that Article 2, Section 2 says membership on the CIC will include 2 neighborhood associations appointed representatives. So you've got neighborhood associations appointment from each recognized neighborhood association, 1 representative each from the Main Street area and the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. As Mayor Neely indicated, the Chamber of Commerce is a defined body. You can tell who those nominations are. The neighborhood associations are defined bodies. You can tell who makes those representations. The Main Street area, as Michael said, is nebulous, and it appears to have shifted over time as to who represents what. And that's why I'm suggesting that at the next meeting, you look at the credentials. I think the idea of saying right now that person can't vote isn't necessarily something you want to do, but you might consider appointing a committee, ad hoc committee, to look at this question and determine who you're willing to accept as a representative, or come back with a report to look at this question, recognizing that what the CIC might have done when it created this area might not be what you want to do in the future, but to at least determine whether you can find an entity that you'll accept credentials from for that Main Street area representative.
Thank you for that wise assessment. We've got Alice up next. Alice?
At our vote in December, a couple of members, there was some contention, I believe, about their attendance record and whether they should be eligible to vote. And what I would like to suggest, and I'll make it in the form of a motion if necessary, is that the delegate list that Katie currently has, which we're working off of at this point until we can verify all the letters of authorization from the neighborhoods. But I'd like a grace period be given to all those members so that the slate is wiped clean in regard to attendance until such time as the elections are held, and then we could start counting attendance at that time. So there would be no question about any past attendance prior to the election.
And then from that point forward, everyone knows
that's
a matter of...
That's right. We'll be keeping score, and we will make sure.
Bill, does that need to be a motion to what that's clean and start?
I don't even know that that's...
Or can we just
do that?
I
think you can do it. What I would suggest that Alice is referring to Article 2, Section 5, that says any member or appointed designee who misses more than 2 unexcused consecutive regular meetings or misses a total 5 regular meetings in 1 year may be deemed to have vacated his or her position. I think the best way to read that, and ultimately it's up to you as to how you want to read your bylaws, is that the CIC has to take some action because it says may be deemed. Right now, the CIC has not taken any action. You don't have to have a motion to wipe it clean, but you can, sort of set that as accept that and look at it
I was
going
trying
forward.
to eliminate the firestorm that
Yes.
occurred at our
Agreed.
election.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that I'll give in to Amy here, that they say that the secretary does contact someone right away and let them know that they need to, that missed 2, and are you planning on continuing?
Well, that would be the best approach.
So, yeah, that's the best way, just to
Mm-hmm.
have someone actually ask. Ms. Last.
I was just going to suggest, I don't know what the normal process is for this board to modify your bylaws, but typically bylaws are modified on an annual basis when the board elections also take place. And I would suggest if you're having another election in April, that you might want to form a short committee to take care of your discrepancy in your bylaws in the next month.
I doubt if it could take place in a month. It took us 4 months just to, but we do. That's part of the plan for the next year. Doug, do you mind if Damon goes
Oh, go
first?
ahead. Let Doug go, and then I'll go.
Okay.
I was just going to comment, I don't think you're suggesting modifying the bylaws, you're just, at this point, you're just suggesting setting the clock.
Yeah, for that method. But we do plan, that's going to be on the schedule to do the bylaws. And we had a committee last time look at the bylaws for neighborhoods. We had a committee look at the bylaws. We appointed a committee from this group, and they looked at the bylaws. We made a minor change a year ago, adding that this is the location, the body to which if a neighborhood has a problem in their neighborhood, they can come to this group. But they will appoint a committee coming up probably next meeting to look at the bylaws and go through them. I'm sure with a fine-tooth comb at this point. Damon?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, as one of the original authors of the bylaws, and these don't look like the ones that, so I think, because the ones I did were 2009. But anyway, first off, the MSOC was the intent for the Main Street area. I don't know where it became Main Street area rather than Main Street committee, but that's fine. I understand you're the representative currently from Main Street? No. Okay, there is nobody from Main Street?
Terry Powers is currently the representative for Main Street.
Okay.
Last meeting was her first meeting.
Okay. Then, yeah, and that, I was just going to say, if you were the man, then it'd be real simple. You just abstain every time, and then it's not an issue. But, so yeah, we do need to come up with a definition of Main Street. I agree that we need to deal with that little cluster of people, but that isn't going to happen between now and April. And I don't know why it ever got carved out of Park Place, but somehow somebody drew a map, and you know how that goes. That's why states have wiggly lines, because two different people who are drunk drew maps. So I guess at this point, I don't really have much to say, because I was going to suggest if you're the rep, just abstain, and then there's not an issue about how you voted. But, yeah, we'll just leave that for, I think we should just leave that for the next meeting.
Just for clarification, Damon, when we did make a change to this, the only change we added was on Article 4 of the grievances. We added Section 3 about if neighborhoods have problems that need to be addressed, rather than taking them to the city commission, they can come before this committee. That's the only thing we added. We didn't change any of the other wording at that time, just so you know. Okay, again, I think that ends that portion of the evening of where we discuss where we've come and what we're going to do. Under new business, I do have something else, though, and that is that I saw the agenda for the work session tomorrow, and I believe, Doug, isn't there something about neighborhood associations on there? There's something about recognition of neighborhood. Can someone refresh our memory for that? What that is about?
Sure, I might be able to help out. I
Please.
think there are really two issues that are on the agenda, and where the commission goes with them. I don't know at the work session. Certainly no decision, but one of them is a revised version of suggested bylaws for the
template.
Template. Thank you for the neighborhood associations. And a second issue that has come up is insurance provision of insurance for the neighborhood associations. I'm sorry, you're right. It's the agreement formally recognizing the neighborhood association by the city. It's not the template for the bylaws.
Okay, so that's still to come.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second, Paul. Katie, you look like...
Well, no, you're asking if the template for the bylaws is going to go before the city commission. At this point, it's not.
Okay.
The two issues, we'll
Are the
work from
recognition.
those two issues, and then I think we'll move forward from there.
Okay. One thing I wanted to clarify for everyone is that I have other projects coming up, and I hadn't planned on doing all this, but I think that this should be a representatives from this area, from this committee, who are going to be serving on this board for the next couple of years, attend that meeting just to hear what's going on, or at least have some representatives at that meeting to listen to what the insurance. I think Bob's been bringing that up a couple times. Bob, if you would be there. Anybody else who would? It's okay for people to attend, right? Just to listen.
Absolutely.
So again, my role is changing, so it's more appropriate that some of you attend that meeting if you'd like to hear about that.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, Paul.
A key element of what is going to be discussed tomorrow is literally the oversight, who, it's kind of like, are we run by the city or are we independent? And what is the position that we lay, how are we perceived? And to a degree...
Can you clarify whether you're talking neighborhood or
neighborhood
CIC?
or the CIC.
Okay, CIC is not involved in tomorrow night's work session, as I understand it.
It's just neighborhood associations.
Right, it's neighborhood associations. That's the focus of discussion tomorrow night.
But it's maintaining the degree of independence that we as a neighborhoods have and should have to speak our mind, to solicit input from anybody. It's important that I don't know. I guess if we can talk. I'm independent of my wife, but my wife told me what she thought. My wife thought that we should be very independent, and I sometimes, after 50 years of marriage, listen. So,
And you better.
anyway, it is something that we should all be aware of. That this is some of the discussion over and above the insurance issue is to really talk about our independence as an independent entity. And I would like, I think that it's important for all of us to have some input. Thank you.
And that's kind of where I was going. That any of you who can make the meeting tomorrow night, I believe it's at 5:30 or 7?
5:30.
5:30. Please do attend, and just to hear what's going on, and so you'll understand and be able to take that back to your neighborhood associations as to what's going on.
In this chamber.
Yes, of the work session. I'm not sure where you were going with that. Okay, but that concludes that new business and discussion items. Any other new business before we move on? Old business. The only old business I know that we had, it's not on here, was the template for the neighborhood bylaws. A group of this esteemed body took upon themselves for several months to rewrite those and add some things in that weren't there. We looked at several bylaws of several different neighborhood associations, used McLaughlin's, Park Places, several, and took bits and pieces of them. And it has been with the city now since about August, and I think they were holding it until they determined the insurance issue. Is that correct? So that will be something for this body to consider coming up in the near future. Okay. Under Ask OCPW, our Oregon City Public Works, John.
Give him a microphone.
Yeah, give him the walk
I'll take
around.
all the microphones I can get. Thank you very much. So I have a couple things that I thought I'd bring to your attention. One is related to the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2 project. Alita handed me some information on a couple things that are going on that this group may or may not be interested in, but the general public may be interested in. As part of that project, there's a PSU there's PSU architectural class that's putting together some charrettes about or some design concepts for some of the beautification of that project. And maybe even go beyond that a little bit. As you know, that's one of the gateways into Oregon City. So that has been on the plan for a long time. They're proposing they're going to have this student design charrette on January 19th at Portland State University. And then these concepts that will come out of this charrette will be presented to the City Commission on January 29th. And then on February 6th, the Urban Renewal Commission will actually make an announcement about the award of that. So all those meetings are open to the public. And what I suggested, because Alita wasn't sure of the specifics of the time or the location, so I said, well, we could probably follow up with the CIC and send each member an email about that. So that's coming. So just be on the lookout for that if that sounds interesting to any of you. So the other one, a couple things that I pulled down off the website that I wanted to mention, and this is not a joke, but there's a video on the website right now called Will It Flush? And this is of interest to Public Works. because it actually is a fairly serious issue about what people put down the toilet and how that affects the public utilities, so the pipelines, pump stations, the treatment plant. And it's kind of an interesting little video. It just basically shows in a laboratory what different products that might typically go down the toilet, how they affect the utility systems and how they can negatively affect those. So again, it's not a very long video, but yet it has a pretty big impact. So please take a look at that, or share that with your neighborhoods and ask them to take a look at that. The Holcomb neighborhood should be informed about this, but others may not be. But we've applied for a grant. It's an Oregon Transportation Enhancement Grant to extend sidewalks from the grade school driveway on up to Winston. Actually, it's actually short of that, but you have to go on to see the details of specifically where it's at. I think it's actually, I'm trying to think, Oak Tree Terrace, I think is where we propose this one stops at. But anyway, it's a project that we've applied for. We were shortlisted for the consideration, and the state is still looking at deeper into who should really be selected. And they've got a survey online that is on our website. It's listed under Holcomb Boulevard. It's on the city's website, but it's listed as Holcomb Boulevard Enhancement Grant, I believe. And there's a survey there, and it's kind of it's not real complex, but there's a lot of projects that are listed in there, and you have to know that you want to go to that Holcomb Boulevard, and actually you can give them comments, and it's some form of measure. I'm not sure how much of a measure, because the state isn't telling us, but it's some form of measure of whether or not they see that as a project that's important to the communities that they're in or not. So the more people that go to that website, and the idea is you go once, and they ask for your name, and so I'm not sure how foolproof that really is, but the idea would be is you'd go look at that website, you'd look at that project, and you'd make comments on there that would be supportive, preferably, of the project. So that's another one. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, having lived up in that area for so long. If it only goes up to Oak Tree Terrace, after that it becomes, I guess, an outlet of Clackamas County, but that's a short distance. What would the kids who would walk just from that school just to Oak Tree, where would they go then? They'd have to cross the street, busy Holcomb at that. It's kind of a sharp turn down, you can't see.
Right.
What would the kids do?
So the original intent was to take the sidewalk all the way up to Winston. That's why I was a little...
Where the rest of the sidewalk is.
Right. The project grant was a $500,000 grant. We estimated the project in several different phases, and the piece between the school and Oak Tree Terrace, which would include a crossing, one of the pedestrian activated flashing beacon crossings, the type that you would walk up to the button, actually hit the button, and it would, there'd be a obvious flashing signal, something that we don't have in this town right now, but you'll see some communities that do have those. So the project that we could afford to get done within the project grant only included up to Oak Tree Terrace. And the balance of that now, what we've kind of heard from the neighborhood was the neighborhood would probably be willing to rally around a temporary project that would keep a soft pathway from kind of wherever we could get to near Oak Tree Terrace on up to Winston. And so that piece is yet to be determined whether or not we've got enough neighborhood support of that. But the project is costly because there's slopes on either side of Holcomb, and in order to get this to fit within the boundaries of Holcomb, it's going to require some engineering and some construction effort that was beyond what we could afford to do to get it all the way to Winston.
For those who aren't aware, as you come up Holcomb and around the corner there by the school, right after Oak Tree, it takes kind of I'm not sure what you call it, a lip, but you usually can't see over the top of that of cars that are coming down the road. So that's why I was interested, how would kids cross the road, because you can't see oncoming cars as they're coming down the hill.
As someone who comes out of Oak Tree Terrace every day, there's no way that's going to be safe for anybody to cross there, because the cars are flying coming inbound down Holcomb past Oak Tree Terrace. So we tried with a school speed limit, didn't fly. So we would have to have the warning sign much further out, probably out by Tom's area, in order to get people to slow down.
Steve, that's our intent with this, provide that rapid flashing beacon advanced enough to where, vehicles could see that. But I get the concern for crossing Holcomb.
Mainly for little kids.
Massive concern.
The part you didn't get is that when you push the button, spike strips come up. And so, if you don't stop in time,
not a problem.
Let's see, another piece of information that might be of interest to you is Oregon Passenger Rail, which is a statewide effort to look at passenger rail between Eugene and the Oregon border on the north, actually Vancouver, and beyond, really. I mean, it's the intent is to try and get better passenger rail service all the way up to Canada from Eugene. So we've attended, the mayor and I actually attended a meeting, and we're planning to attend more. There's been some open houses already. There's going to be another open house on January 15th at the Pioneer Center, right up the street here on 5th. So learn more about that. The time is from 5 to 7. There's another meeting that night, isn't there, Doug? Isn't there something else? TAC meeting, that's right. So we know you'd all love to go to the open house and then rally down here to the TAC meeting and find out all about.
For those watching, TAC is
Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. So it's kind of related. So if you're on, if I know Bob will make it to this because he's all dialed into it. What's that?
Police advisory.
We don't care about the police advisory. Police advisory meetings that night as well. So.
What?
Let's see.
Can I make a point? This is something that's set up by ODOT. This is the site for Clackamas County. So it's not our meeting actually.
That's true.
It's not. So it's not a case of us not planning the meeting carefully. This is a meeting for all of Clackamas County, and they chose the senior center for it.
Yes.
Okay, John?
I'd like to make a comment on the high-speed rail thing. We've been talking about it in Kenema because we have rail right between right through our neighborhood, and it's a big deal. And also, kind of as an urban renewal commissioner, we have a rail depot, an Amtrak depot building and site here in Oregon City, and if they were to bypass Oregon City, it's a big deal. And if they come through Kenema and they want to have a high-speed track going through Kenema, they may have to put double the track through Kenema, and then they may have to put up 12 or 15-foot walls right through Kenema between to make sure it's safe for kids and dogs and animals and everything else. And so when we start thinking about 12 or 15-foot high walls right through Kenema, it's not a little deal. It's so it does capture our attention, and it's kind of like a division. It's taking Holcomb Road and Holcomb and putting walls on both sides of Holcomb so you can't see across it.
I'm fine. I like it.
Anyway,
I would say this though, Paul. I think you painted a pretty negative picture of what it could be, and they've talked about high-speed rail. They've talked about variable speed rail in areas where it needs to be variable speed. So who knows exactly what we're getting. I think that's part of the open house, is to get people informed, to hear their input and their thoughts. And yeah, I mean, some things sound more negative than other. And coming through Oregon City, there's not too many options from what we can see. It looks pretty consistent with our existing rails. So go to that meeting. See, there's a lot of discussion about all the alternatives. There's quite a few alternatives, really, between Wilsonville and Eugene. That's where there's a lot of variety. Between Wilsonville and Portland and Vancouver, there's a lot less variety, and one of the options is through Oregon City. So, yeah, take a look at it, but just who knows exactly what they would come up. They sound like a very innovative group, and they're thinking outside the box as best they can. So people take a look at that. And then the last thing is really not even our project. This is a parks project, but I saw it and I thought I would mention it. Rivercrest Park, they're actually out to bid for restrooms for Rivercrest Park and Rivercrest Park neighborhoods. So that's something that I don't know too much about. I just noticed it on the website and thought I would mention it to you. So,
All right, let's start roundtable.
No.
I'm sorry?
I
Damon,
have
I'm
a couple
sorry, I
of public
apologize.
works things. First off, since two of your bosses are here, I figured I'd send a couple kudos your way. Well, the mayor and one commissioner, so the other one snuck out. But
We're only the boss of the city manager.
right. So all you have to do is defund, the public works manager position. But anyway, first off, I just wanted to say I went on the little report a problem site, report a pothole thing to report an area where we're having some upheaval of the road, and I got a very prompt response that you'd acknowledged we got it, that your team, not necessarily you specifically, but you got it, and then I was very surprised that basically in this weather, the next decent day, there was a whole crew out there that tore up the pavement and replaced, since it was in the street, it wasn't, it was like within 12 hours it was fixed. And that was about 4 weeks after I reported the issue, which had been around for years, and I don't know why anybody else hadn't reported it. But so kudos to your team for responding, and I got a very prompt response. We fixed your problem. Do you have any issues? So thank you for all that.
I'm glad you brought that up. I appreciate hearing about it, and that's our Kevin Hanks and our street crew. They do an outstanding job. The whole online reporting thing, though, as you probably know, Damon, but I'll mention anyway, is David Knoll and the IT group, and that is, first glance, I was kind of worried about it because I was pretty certain that people were going to be firing these things in every minute on the minute, but turns out that it's not quite like that, and it does give us an opportunity to log those, track those, and respond to people. So we've heard a lot of good stuff about that, so thank you.
And then the second one, I guess, is a concern. Nice, beautiful paving on Division, and Friday, a cut at 9th and Division. My concern is it looks like they've patched and they're gone, and it's a very rough patch, like kaboom bump as you're going. So if there's somebody responsible for that to see that it's a proper final patch, if they're still working, I understand it was just a weekend patch or whatever, but you got brand new paving down, it should at least be relatively smooth when you go over it. That's at 9th and Division. So
okay, not sure what that would be, but I'll
right
find
across
out.
both lanes. Looked like it was a cross lane pipe patch or something. So, but thank you for all the good work you do.
Is there a land use committee report?
Yes, there is a little bit of land use activity. One, we are also applying for a Nature in the Neighborhood grant through Kenema that will include trying to take out a lot of the ivy.
Paul, before
That's
not to interrupt you, Bill, can we thank you for your attendance here this evening and your help? Thank you very much.
Yeah. And in the area of the Main Street enhancement project, there has been a lot of changes to what was originally visioned to what is now being percolated. But there was once a roundabout that's been eliminated.
You're talking about the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2.
The McLaughlin Enhancement Project.
It's the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2.
At the end of Dunes Drive, there was once to be a roundabout. That's been eliminated. And then there was also a change to the plan that where there was going to be a bioswale on the property next to McDonald's, and that's been eliminated and has been moved across the street next to the Rivershore Hotel, where they're going to put the bioswale there. But one of the key elements on it that needs further discussion is that the city-owned property north of McDonald's, a 200-foot by 16 feet wide right-of-way easement for a sidewalk is being visioned at this time, and that would dramatically impact the value of that lot that we have for sale for economic development. So if you take 16 by 200 feet, and it's only 200 feet from where they're going to put it to the corner of Dunes Drive. So if we eliminate it and just let the people walk down to Dunes Drive and then go down to Clackmont Drive, I think that the only reason for it is literally as a shortcut, but as a shortcut worth in economic value. When I look at the appraised value of McDonald's property right next door, and I equate out the amount of property that we're giving up for this easement is probably worth $200,000 or $300,000 in property value, and I just question that in this McLaughlin enhancement project. Is it justified that we give up that much value and then decrease the value, the resale value of that lot that has high potential for redevelopment? Anyway, I think that's a question that needs to be talked out in this area.
Okay, I need to ask, is that a land use issue that's come before the CIC for us to discuss?
No, but maybe it is, because maybe this is an opinion that needs to be solicited, but it's city-owned property, it's 16 feet wide and it's 200 feet long, and
well,
maybe we should do it.
My point is this, when are comments due?
Well, right now, we're working with, if you remember, there's a committee that's made up of participants off of this group that are participating in the design review comments, and right now the consultant is working on a design set of plans for 30% designs. So typically designs like that we'll see them at 30%, we'll see them at 60%, we'll see them at 90%, and right now they're starting the 30% review.
My question being is that we've had a land use committee to consider these things, and I think the land use committee now has changed because there's been some changes to membership here.
There's no land use approvals on this.
I'm talking to Paul about if we want to address this as a CIC group, we may have to have whoever's right now who's on the land use committee. Paul, do you remember? It was you and. Sorry, I don't know.
I know that I'm the chair of it, but I haven't seen
I
it.
believe it was, I have to look back, but I believe it was Paul Edgar, Tom Guile, William Gifford, Larry Hanlon, and one other person, I believe. I'm going to look and see here.
So two of the members are gone.
Three. Yeah, because I'm not a voting member of anything. So I'm wondering, would somebody else here, a part of this group, like to be a part of the land use committee to review this to see if it's something that we should bring before the CIC to discuss it? Please.
Bob, you ought to.
Steve, Will? Bob, are you already on transportation?
Yeah,
Mike, you'd like to be on that? Sure. Okay. And Tony? Also. Okay, so did you get those names, Katie? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Mike
Berman.
Berman and Tony.
Tony. Steve Van Herbeck.
Steve.
Bob, did you say yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so Bob LaSalle, that's a good group.
Okay.
So Paul, your best bet on that would be to call a group, a meeting, and discuss that with them if you want to bring it before the CIC for discussion.
We can.
Yes, Doug.
I'd encourage the people who want to attend those meetings of which this project is being discussed.
Yes.
Okay.
They just don't let one person from the CIC then present it.
I understand.
They should be coming to the meetings.
Be more familiar with it.
Yeah.
Well,
to know what they're
that's
speaking
the other
about.
thing. I'm not this group nominated
some people
5 members, I think, from this group to actually be a part of the?
We have to check the minutes.
We didn't actually nominate, I don't believe. What we did is we
Call
took
for volunteers.
we took volunteers, and there were a bunch of volunteers. And I can go back if you guys give me some time at the next meeting. We can discuss who was currently on the land use
Right.
chair, and then who you've now volunteered to be on, and then we can also look at who had volunteered to be on the phase.
Great.
The McLaughlin Phase 2 project, and we may have to replace, maybe ask for more volunteers again, because maybe those members have left, because I'm pretty sure Walter White was one of them, who is no longer on the CIC, and
William and Larry.
yeah,
Alice
and Larry.
Watts is one.
Oh, and Alice, yeah.
And I
So-
think we had those meetings just before this,
We did.
before the,
Yes.
like maybe even in November. So I mean, we're open to bringing it back to the committee and getting as much public, and that's pretty much the mantra that we've always had with public projects, is to get
put
public
that on.
involvement. So
That'll be on the
And
agenda.
anybody's
for-
open to go. You don't have to be just a part
Right.
of this group. Any citizen out there that's listening to this can go to these. Is that right? The Phase 2, they're open, right, to the public.
So let's put that on the February agenda.
What's the acronym for that?
It was a, what'd you say, Paul Edgar work group? No, it was the
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Public Works Advisory Group, I think.
PWAG.
PWAG or PWAG or something.
Okay. Let's move right into roundtable so we can proceed out. Eileen, why don't we start with you? Anything for the good of the order?
Huh?
Anything for the good of the order? Anything you'd like to announce?
No, but I did want to hear, have they let the bid on the the Rivercrest bathrooms?
They have not let the bid. They've advertised the bid, and so right now it's in the bid process.
Okay. So maybe someday if we'll have that done, huh?
No, I hear they're on fast track. They want to get it done before the spray park is open.
Okay. That's all I've got. Otherwise, we're in limbo up there. It's still winter vacation.
Understand.
I have a question for you. Are you guys holding a meeting in January?
What?
Are you guys holding a meeting in January, Rivercrest?
No.
You're not.
But we better have one in February.
Thank you.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Katie, John, anything else? Paul?
According to what I understand from Howard, we're going to have a Kenema Neighborhood Association meeting in October 24th. Or no, January 24th. Boy, you can tell I'm in trouble. January 24th, and we'll we're going to try to get our act together.
Okay. Mr. Patient Steve.
Normally, we would have had the Hillendale Neighborhood Association meeting last week at this time, but it was New Year's, so we deferred to tomorrow, the 8th, but I asked for a move back to the 15th because of this meeting, not knowing exactly how things were going to fall. So I'm kind of glad that I did. So our regular Hillendale Neighborhood Association meeting will be Tuesday, the 15th, and that'll be at the Living Hope Church on Myers Road. I know all of you are kind of on pins and needles about this Walmart presentation, and the ball is in their court. We have told them, yes, we would love to hear their presentation and what they have to say, and we told them that we would like to schedule it for a venue that would be large enough to accommodate as many stakeholders in this as possible. So it's in their court whenever they get back in touch with us. Have they contacted you, Katie, about anything?
They did send an email today, and I was actually going to tell you, I don't think on the 15th, I think Living Hope Church was not available. I thought Debbie sent an email today. I'm sorry. We'll have to talk offline.
Okay,
but,
that's fine.
The meeting is supposed to be scheduled for the 15th. We'll have to check on the location. And I don't believe Walmart is going to be attending that meeting. They're going to look for another date. They were unable to get prepared for the 15th.
Okay, and as I understand, there's a couple of other presenters for land use issues in this next meeting. That's about it.
Thank you, Steve. On behalf of myself, I've been referring all along to other things in the fire, and I'm pleased and honored that the mayor appointed, on January 2nd, the mayor appointed me to the Planning Commission. So that's what I meant, that I have other things in the fire. But I agreed to Doug to stay on here, and to any of you who wanted me to, which it sounded like you did, to help guide this. I have no personal interest in this. I'd be happy just to make sure that this process goes right and you'll get the people you need. And I'm sure right now you've got two great people here. And I'm hoping that all neighborhoods stay involved. It's really important for every neighborhood to be represented in this, because that's the whole idea of communications to the neighborhoods. And as I've gone around the last few years to various meetings, not all, but some, I have always encouraged them to get more people involved, get more communications into your neighborhood association so your representatives can come here and talk about issues that impact them. And I hope that continues, and that any neighborhoods that aren't currently involved tonight will stay involved and come back and help us. And thanks.
The Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association will be meeting on Thursday night, January 24th. And we have, I kept getting confused if it was the 24th or 25th, but it is the 24th. We have someone coming to talk about the South End concept plan, and then also someone coming to talk about Subway is asking to do some kind of an expansion or remodel or something. And their engineer has been in contact with me wanting to come, but I haven't gotten final yes, he'll be there. They said they wanted to come, but we're hoping that he will definitely be there on that night.
Hazel Grove Wrestling Farms has their meeting scheduled for Thursday, January 17th, and I have a mailing information here for Katie. I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Surprise. Is that it for you, Tom? Or? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I thought he was going to say more. Darn. Couldn't put it in there. So our meeting is the 17th, and we're trying to get more people to become involved in the different committees that are within the city, for the parks and recs, land use, looking to see what kind of speakers they would like, and just kind of have an open forum to get going for the other 3 meetings that we're going to have. And anybody's welcome to come. And I would like to thank everybody that took a stock for filling stocking, fill a heart. Good and bad, we made it 3,293. We did 93 more this year than last year, the year before. So that means things for some people are no better. And thank everybody for their donations. They really went a long way with people. Thank you.
Next.
Park Place Neighborhood Steering Committee is meeting January 21st. We'll be starting our process for the next elections, which will occur in May, but for the bylaws, we have need to get our slate together for the February meeting. And we will start reviewing the bylaws again.
Steve, that's a federal holiday. I believe this office is closed, or is the meeting still on Martin Luther King Day?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Yeah, the only one that we moved to a different day is February. So.
Okay. Bob?
Several months ago, I re-energized the insurance issue for neighborhood association officers, and I had my 3 minutes of fame with the city commission the other night, actually a little more than 3 minutes. And one of my things I wanted to do, and I forgot to, was thank Katie Riggs for keeping us informed in a timely basis once that issue started. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
McLaughlin just elected new officers, and our new chairperson is Ray Gordon. And she's here tonight, and I believe she wants to share something.
Oh, no.
Did you want to share something? Yeah.
A song, yeah.
Oh! Get it!
Make it a 3-minute song.
Well, it's good to see you guys again. Great to see some friendly faces. Oh, it's like I need
We don't need that.
Thanks, Katie, for keeping me informed. Hi, nice to see you. On the 20th, I don't know, do you guys know Paul Lindman, that whole whale thing that he did, right? Okay. So Paul Lindman is coming to the Pioneer Center. I started last year something called the 2020 event, and it helps kids get, it was 2 years ago. Oh, yeah, well. But now then people are going to know that I'm not going to be 2020 this time. Okay. So started it, did it instead of a birthday. You know, it's a funny story. But so it is happening at the Pioneer Center on January 20th. You can go to 2020event.org. And what it does is helps kids of families that can afford them get glasses and hearing aids. And I was a kid like that. So I partnered with Oregon City Lions Club. So they're going to find the kids that are in the classes, Gaffney School, other places, and then send them to Paul and Vicki Lindman's 1190KX Kids Fund. It's a really good thing. I hope you come and come and get a ticket, and lots of silent auction, lots of music, and dancing and dining. Food is included. So, and also I just want to point out that a lot of people don't realize that the Pioneer Center is a great event venue. And I like the fact that there's a lot of Portland folks and radio listeners coming, and they're kind of, I've heard that somebody had called, it came to the 2020 and called and asked about renting it. So it's great to have Paul Lindman on board and come into Oregon City.
Ray, as you're aware, we usually go out to the audience after being up here. Is there anything else you wanted to say about your neighborhood association?
I am excited to be last year I became a homeowner for the first time. Thanks to Larry Henlon's wife was selling her childhood home, and I got the childhood home. So I'm just excited to be back and helping out and seeing what I can do to help you guys, and missed it, been gone for a year, and glad to be a part of McLaughlin, and I love you guys.
Okay, next we go to Damon.
Nothing.
Okay, Ingrid and Bob. David.
South End Association, I'm not sure.
Microphone.
And you turned on the mic.
We're representing the South End Neighborhood Association, and I'm not sure when our next meeting is. I need to look up and find that out. But I think that they can go online and see when the dates of the meetings are. But we do meet at the Methodist Church on South End Road, and we don't have anything to add right now.
Okay. Why don't you pass it to Amber, then Tony? Okay. Tony, anything to add to go to the order?
Yes. We're having the Berkeley Hills neighborhood meeting tomorrow evening at 7. So on there we'll be electing probably the vice chair and the secretary.
Okay.
And we have the police liaison coming to address the people and meet and greet, and then someone from the South End Concept will be coming in to talk to us. And I was meant to tell you about we've had a couple of people talking about the pedestrian light, hopefully by the Berkeley Hills and Molalla Avenue. That's a little bit tricky getting out of there, but just to bring it to your attention. Yeah. Other than that, that's it. Great.
Thank you, Tony. And
Thanks.
And Tony, thank you for representing your neighborhood and being here at the last couple of meetings. It's good to see you. Amber.
So on the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce front, I'm going to actually temporarily wear my Rotary hat. I am a member of Rotary, but they're also a member of the Chamber. And they are offering on Saturday, January 19th, a Rotary Peace and Conflict Resolution Symposium. So I just thought it's in the future, so it never hurts. But no, this will be held on Saturday the 19th. Check in at 8:30, presentations from 9 to 12:30, and it will be just right here at Clackamas Community College in the Gregory Center. Students can attend for free, and tickets for adults are $10. If we don't already have it on the Chamber website, we will shortly, or you can have my single copy that I brought. So, and some of the key topics that will be addressed specifically, and I have a child who's experienced this, so it's kind of near and dear to my heart. Bullying, internet intimidation, apartheid, and use of international youth exchanges to promote peace in war zones.
You said AM or PM?
This is AM, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
I think you said PM, I thought.
The next thing, if you are into the political scene,
Nah.
none of you are, I'm sure. a chance to meet your elected officials. There will be an elected officials reception that's being co-hosted by the Oregon City Chamber, the Wilsonville Chamber, the Oregon National Guard, and mainly the North Clackamas County Chamber. It will be Tuesday, January 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m., and it will be at a very wonderful facility, Camp Withicum, representing our Oregon Military Division. They've been doing an awful lot of work there, and so it's a great idea, great opportunity to see some of the improvements they're making and continue to make. Again, this information is available on our chamber website, www.oregoncity.org. And I do have several copies of this, so I'm happy to share those. And then last but certainly not least, one of the Chamber's major fundraisers each year, but also I think the big gala fun event of the year is our Chamber Awards Dinner. And this year our theme is A Night on the Town. It is Saturday night, January 26th at Abernethy Center and the Chapel. And we are going to be bringing in a TV personality. Does anyone watch Drew Carney on the
Channel
mornings, Channel 8? He's our MC. And so I expect that to be a lot of fun. And so the entire community is invited. You do have to pay to attend. It is a fundraiser, and happy to get you there. In fact, our mayor will be there, and he will be providing the Citizen of the Year Award. So big doings, big awards, fun event. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Before you go that way, why don't you hand it over to the last, Mr. and Mrs. By the way, I think I speak on behalf of all the community up here to compliment you on your daughter. I mean, how she could sit through 2.5 hours of this meeting and be so patient and so quiet. It's amazing. So compliments to her.
We're wondering the same thing.
Just like her mother.
So we had a meeting at the Tower Vista Neighborhood Association on December 12th, and we had Officer Joe Pagano was there, who's the citizen liaison for our neighborhood. Very nice gentleman. Really glad to have that program going. The other, according to our website, I'm kind of new with Tower Vista, they don't have any scheduled meetings until March. But I did talk with the gentleman regarding the South End project. I think it's important that they get an opportunity to do a presentation. So we're going to be scheduling a meeting for February. That will also give us a chance to get our official credentials in place. And then the other thing that we're kind of working on is there's been a subdivision, TP 1203, unfortunately, that has R6 homes proposed across the street from R10 homes. So to put that in perspective, that would be 7 homes on one side of the street in 2 blocks, and then 14 on the other side of the street. And what I've found in talking to the neighbors is I've been very surprised at the large number of people that felt that they had never received any notice of zoning changes. And then this has also opened up another area between Central Point and Pease Road, which has all been rezoned to R6. Again, people are feeling very disenfranchised, and so we're going to be talking about that and see how we can get people more involved in the planning process and hopefully come up with some suggestions that we can increase the notification to the people in the neighborhood.
Great.
And that's it.
Did you say that you're kind of new to the process?
Yes.
In your role? Do you?
This
I
is
think
the second meeting.
Sooner or later, we're going to need to put together a welcome package, like a welcome wagon for new people with rules and all that. But also, your neighborhood has, and I think Katie could be of assistance to you. You can put out a postcard. You have a budget for notifying people if you weren't aware of that. So
Yeah, I want to say Katie has been absolutely wonderful. I feel like I pester her every day, and she's been awesome with responding to everything. And I also want to say the people on the planning department, Tony Conkle and their staff, has been wonderful too. So I have only good things to say about the staff on Oregon City.
Good. So behind you next is Mike Berman, I believe. We'll go back that way. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Congratulations on a good meeting. You slogged through it and got it done in the democratic way. Way to go.
Thank you. Rocky, do you have anything to say, Rocky? No. No haunted houses coming up or anything? Okay, Ray's already spoken. Mrs. Latt?
I'm actually going to be quiet for one.
Okay. Then our last person speaking will be Doug. So Doug, you have a few good words to say to us.
I came here to see whether you guys are going to behave yourself or not. You did a great job.
We have not heard from Sophie.
From who?
Sophie.
Oh, Sophie.
Hi, Sophie. How are you doing? Say good night to everybody.
Good night.
I thank you all for your attendance for the first meeting of 2013, and we'll schedule the next meeting for the first Monday in February. Thank you very much.